Hi there, it's Tim, and welcome to another episode of Tea Time with Tim. And this time we are going to be talking about the very latest product from the futurewas8bit.com, and that is their latest version of the Penultimate cartridge for the VIC20. And Rod has very kindly sent me over one to test, and it is the Penultimate Plus 2. So if you've got a VIC20 and you haven't owned one of the Penultimate cartridges before, where have you been? But don't worry, that's fine, no problem. You can grab yourself one now. So just a very brief bit of history about the Penultimate cartridge. So Dave Curran is the developer from Time Mouth Software. He originally developed the Penultimate cartridge, which was kind of very similar to how you see it now, but a bit more basic in the design. Didn't have the case and all that sort of stuff. Together, Dave and Rod from FutureWas8bit got together, and they made the kind of like the first iteration of what we see now. So this is my very first issue 1 from the very first batch, I think it was, of the Penultimate cartridge. So this had the menu button and the reset button on it. But this was sort of like the very basic entry level, had a few ROMs on there, obviously had all the memory management and that sort of stuff. This is when Rod first created these lovely VIC20 cases, adorned nicely there with the FutureWas8bit logo. And then moved on eventually to the Penultimate Plus cartridge. So this is my one, and this is a nice two-tone cartridge, so it's one and two different color shells. So this one had things like a built-in PU Plus tester, had diagnostic, had some more ROMs, and it had the new menu from Misfit in there. So then we jump right forward to what we've got now, which is the Penultimate 2 Plus. This is available from their website, so you can, at this time, I think it's in pre-order, but it won't be very long until it officially ships. So yeah, this is the Penultimate Plus 2 from FutureWas8bit, and we're going to do a bit of a dive into it and show you it through the menu system, and also a few games running from it as well. Please don't forget the reason why we're here, and that's the Pixel Garden podcast, hosted by myself, Cody Hoffman, and Eric Nelson. Also, if you like this video, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Right, let's power on the VIC20 and take a look at the Penultimate Plus 2 from the FutureWas8bit. So on goes the VIC20, and here we are right into the boot up screen. So this is the main menu that you come to when you start up the Penultimate Plus 2. As we can see at the top, we've got it's developed by Time Mouth Software, which is Dave Curran, and of course we've got the FutureWas8bit, which is Rod Hull. They do many good products, and as you know, they've obviously done the earlier versions of the Penultimate cartridge. This is one of the best things that you can really get for your VIC20 out there. So in the main menu, we have got from the start, we've got all the games listed in alphabetical order, so in A to Z. Then we've got the games by category. So that groups the games in the type of games that they are. So these ones particularly are all the games by the FutureWas8bit. So published by FutureWas8bit. Then you've got adventure and board games, arcade classics, blitz type games, lovely centipede type games, defender, driving games, also all the different genres. Then you got things like different publishers as well, so like Huco games, and of course Llamasoft games, which are absolutely epic on the VIC20. Not forgetting the Misfit games, paddle style games, which were really good on the VIC20. And then you've got snake games, Space Invader games, so lots of different genres there. Then we've got one of the new features on the PU Plus 2, which is the ROD's Random ROM Runner. So essentially what that does is you select that and that will load up a random game from the list. Complete randomizer, which is really good fun. And you can actually set this, the PU Plus 2, to boot into that every time through the settings menu, which I'll show you in a minute. So next up we've got the utilities menu. In here we've got like all the different VIC monitors, super expanders, the fourth program. We've got CBM command, which is like a file manager, SD to IEC changer, which I'll show you a bit later, IEC port tester, a dead test plus, so you can test out your VIC20, and a self-test for the Penultimate Plus 2. So let's go back. We've also got our file favorites, which I'll explain about that a bit later, but it's essentially a way to use your SD to IEC and put some files in a specific place on the SD card, and then you can jump straight into those favorites. So whether that be games or utilities or something like that, maybe stuff that aren't included with the Plus 2. Advanced memory configuration, so this is for your bank switching for your different types of RAM. So you've got your unexpanded, your 3K, 8K, 11K, which is 3K and 8K switched in, and so on until you get to 35K with the 3 and all the 8 switched in on the banks. You can change your drive, you can exit to basic, and then again this is with your SD to IEC, loading the original file browser, and then of course if you've got a real disk drive connected, you can just load a disk or a D64 image straight off of the SD to IEC. So going back, let's go down to here. So we've got our exit to basic again, run the file browser, load from disk. There's the settings menu. So just before we go into the settings menu, I'll just run you through the section at the bottom. So if you look at the bottom, you've got F1, F3, F7, F2, F4, F6, F8. So if you don't know, I haven't used a VIC20 before, so you've got your F keys on the right hand side, and those will take you into, so that's F1 is unexpanded, so this is setting your RAM options, F3 32K, F5 35K, F7 which will go to the SD to IEC file browser, and then if you press shift and then F1 you'll get F2, so you'll get 3K, 8K, 24K, and again F8 to load star from the disk, so load the first thing off the disk. Then you've got the R button, which will change the RAM settings, so you can just use that to scroll through, so we'll leave that set back to 32, 35K. D, which is handy, so if you've got an SD to IEC and you've got a Y cable, so you've got like a splitter on the VIC20, you can connect up 2 drives, so you'll have one which is drive 8, one which is drive 9, so you can select D there, which will take us back and take us through and select the drive that the Penultimate Plus 2 is looking at. That's helpful later down the line. And then talking of help, if we press H for the help key, this gives us our keyboard shortcuts. So we can do M to return back to the main menu, the star key, which launches the ROD's Random ROM Runner. We can do B, which starts the file browser, U to go to the utilities menu, D to cycle the drive number, and what we've just said, cycle through RAM options for R. Now this is an important thing, so when you're in the games menu or at any time, you can press P, which will show only PAL games, and N, which will show you NTSC games. Now, if you're in the PAL region, you can still run some of those NTSC games, but they do go off to the top left of the screen, and you can't move them like some of you can do with the PAL games to get the game back into the center of the screen. A to show all games, and T show all the Future Was 8-bit games, and then C, which will show the credits. So there we go. So this is the VIC20 Penultimate Plus 2 cartridge. This is version 7.33 RC3. So this is a development set of ROMs. So I'm lucky enough to have a beta version of this, or a test version, should I say. So I've tested out RC2, and I've also burnt the set of ROMs for the RC3. So as I mentioned, this is designed and developed by Dave Curran of Time Mouse Software. There's his website on there, so timemousesoftware.co.uk, and it's produced and distributed by the Future Was 8-bit. So if you want to pop over and obviously order one of these or anything Future Was 8-bit, you can pop over to tfw8b.com or thefuturewas8bit.com. Graphical items on the menu was all done by Misfit, the marvelous Mad Misfit, and then just basically just mention that a lot of the games here are kind of like been released into the public domain. If there's anything that isn't on, that shouldn't be on there, you can reach out to the guys over at Future Was 8-bit, and I'm sure they'll remove it on future versions. So that's a quick run through of the menu system for the Penultimate Plus 2. Okay, so let's use this Penultimate Plus 2 cartridge as it's intended, as Rod intended, for a game. Let's go with a Future Was 8-bit game, one that I absolutely love and I've discovered recently because of the PU Plus 2, and that's Rigel Attack. Now this is a shoot 'em up. So let's press fire button to start. So look at this. This is absolutely beautiful game. Big chunky sprites. Nice shooting action on the VIC20. And you got power-ups as well that you collect and you die. Let's have a bit of auto fire action going on here. Oh. Game over. Come on, I can do better than this. So we can actually collect a power up. Oh, this is rock hard, this game. Oh, there's the power up. This is great fun on this game. No. One more life. Oh. Come on, there's a power up. Ah, it's covered by a laser. Come on. Now we're getting somewhere. Give me a power up. Oh. Yeah, cool, we completed the level there. Game over. Okay, well there's Rigel Attack. That's available on the Penultimate Plus 2. It's a brilliant game. Oh, there we go. Look, there's a bonus pod, so extra firepower, extra life, etc. Great fun game. Okay, so let's do another option from the menu, and this time let's do Rod's Random ROM Runner. This will load us up a completely random game from the selection of ROMs available on the Penultimate Plus 2. So here we go. Good luck, everyone. Vicky Bird. So this is a Misfit game, and it's Flappy Bird. Yes, it's that single button game that you all know and hate or love or whatever, for the VIC20. And yes, you die straight away, or I do anyway on this type of thing. So there we go. That's what Rod's Random ROM Runner can do for you. It can dump you straight into Vicky Bird. Anyway, enough of that. So the next cool feature of the Penultimate Plus 2, one of the differences between the previous versions, is that you've now got a built-in file browser straight on the Penultimate Plus 2 menu. This will give us all the file contents of the root of the SD card that we have plugged into our SD to IEC. So let's go into here, loading up the directory, and there we are. So that's my directory of my SD card that I've got in here. So we can go into the VIC20 directory, we can go into PRG and D64, and let's just go into G, and then that will load up everything that's in the G directory on here. It might take a minute because this SD card's got quite a load of stuff on there. Still not sorted out the long file names, but hey, there we go. So we've got lots of games in there that you can play, and yes, that's just using the file browser directly from the Penultimate Plus 2, so it saves you going to run and load the FB20 or exit out of BASIC and typing in the commands, those sort of things. So again, another nice little feature that's in the Penultimate Plus 2. So let's demonstrate the file favorite. So this is a nice feature built into the Penultimate Plus 2. If you have an SD to IEC from the Future Was 8-bit or another brand of SD to IEC, if you've got one of those, you can use the file favorites option. So all you need to do on the SD card that you use with your SD to IEC, you need to create a directory in it, and I'll show you what that's called. So if we go into file favorites, and at the top we can see we've got a directory, we're in the directory called PU plus 2. So you just make that folder on the root of the drive, of the SD card, pop that into the SD to IEC, boot up the PU2, and any programs, PRG files, that sort of thing that you drop into that folder, you can go straight into that menu. It's like a shortcut. So for example, these ones here, I've put in some of the games by Derek, which is related in some way to the Reset 64 magazine. You can find these games on there on the Reset 64 itch.io site. Google is your friend for that one, and you can just download these games for free. So this is Derek's version of Chucky Egg. It's absolutely brilliant. This one takes a minute to load, so we'll just pause the recording there, and we'll come back as soon as it's finished loading. So here it is then. This is Chucky Egg loaded from the SD to IEC using the file favorites menu. Let's just quickly go into the game, so we'll just say one player, so we can see it's all loaded up okay. This is a conversion. It never made it across onto the VIC20 originally back in the day, so Derek has made a very faithful reproduction of this game, and it's absolutely brilliant on the VIC20. Probably one of my favourite versions now, I think. Maybe the Electron version, I enjoy maybe a little bit better, but there we go. Anyway, that's loading files from the file favorites menu on the Penultimate Plus 2. Another thing we've got in the Penultimate Plus 2 is the settings menu. So in here we can choose if we want to, on startup, boot to menu. We can boot to load star, so load the first thing off of the SD to IEC or the disk drive with 35K. You can also do basic 4 with 27K, boot to super expander with 27K, boot to VICMon, and you can also boot to a random game. Yes, that's right. You can turn on your VIC20 and get a random game every time. Don't worry, you can always get back to the menu by just pressing the menu button. But anyway, let's go and do that. So we'll boot to a random game. So there we go. It's given us a random game. So if I turn off, turn back on again, and we're going to get another random game. There we go. We got Thunderbird this time. And then if we want to get out of it, we can just press the menu button and go back down to settings, boot to menu, and then that will flick back into the menu. So then if we turn the VIC off, turn it back on again, and there we are, we're back into the menu. Another cool feature of the Penultimate Plus 2. One of the last things I'm going to show you is the utilities menu on the Penultimate Plus 2. So in here we had a brief look here in the introduction, but one thing I wanted to show you was the SD to IEC ID Changer. Now this is really good if you've got more than one drive connected up to your VIC20, or if for any other reason you want to change the ID number on your SD to IEC, you can do it straight through here. So this loads up a little program, and it's the SD to IEC changer. So our current ID is the default ID, which is 8, and then we want to change that to 9. So there we go. So that's all done. So now we turn off, turn back on again. Okay, now we're on drive 9 on the SD to IEC now, but if you notice at the bottom of the screen where it says D drive, it's still on drive 8. So if I go to the file browser or the file favorites, it's not going to find it because we're now drive 8. So what we need to do, drive 9, is we need to press D. That will now recognize drive 9. We'll go to the file browser, loads up the directory, and there we are. So if now we want to change that back, we'll go back into our utilities menu, back into the SD to IEC ID changer. So we're currently on 9, and we're going to change back to 8, and then we're going to power cycle, so turn off, turn back on again. And this time we want to leave D at the bottom on drive 8 because we've selected back to drive 8, and then go back to our file favorites, and there we are. So that is using the utilities menu and the SD to IEC drive ID changer. Okay then, so that wraps up this episode of Tea Time with Tim, all about the Penultimate Plus 2 cartridge from the Future Was 8-bit. Please don't forget about the podcast. We are a retro gaming and retro inspired podcast that's out every 2 weeks. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and on our Podbean site, and also on the Amigos Retro Gaming Network. So until the next one, thanks a lot, and see you again.